the ball. Hold the ball. On backwards. What it is. How you mean? Hold the ball. All right.
My first impression of having Eric as a coach is that I was actually surprised he finally let me on the team after I tried out since I was like 10.
First thoughts on having Eric as a coach was I was excited to be on a new team, and I thought he was going to be a really good coach because he was funny and he helped a lot.
My first thoughts having Eric as my coach was this was the first tournament I ever played for, and I never played outfield before, so I went to his house and I had like 15 balls hit over my head, and I was just a little shocked.
My first impressions of having Eric as a coach was I was very excited because it was the first travel team I'd play on without my mom.
My first impression of having Coach Miser as my coach was absolute astonishment that he took me on the team this time.
My first impression of having Eric as my coach is I was very scared and I cried after the first practice and I never wanted to come back.
My first thought of having Eric as a coach is when the first explosive practice he told me that he wanted me to play first base, and he spent the entire practice throwing balls at me, and on the way home I cried.
Okay, my first thoughts on having Eric as a coach. I cried after the first 5 practices, but I held it together till I got to the car so he didn't know, and I thought I made the biggest mistake in my life playing for him. But here I am 7 years later, so obviously he's doing something right.
My first thoughts of having Eric as a coach was when I tried out, he never told me I actually made the team, so I was so sad. I was like, Dad, I just want to go, and then my dad was like, no, go talk to him what you would want to work on. And so I went up to Eric and was like, hi coach, I just want to know what I can work on, do better next time. And he was like, oh no, you made it, you're on the team. And I was just like, okay.
Alright, so my first thoughts on you coaching, well, you're my dad, so I knew you were a pain. I knew there was going to be a lot of yelling. I don't know though, you always started me off the best that you could. Kind of got used to it, cried a little bit, thought about quitting a little bit. But in the end, you made me a very independent and strong person. Everyone says we're alike and that I'm Erica. And I've been very grateful to have you as my coach.
My favorite memory has been this trip and almost drowning when I got caught in a rip current 2 days ago.
My favorite memory being on this team is when we went over his house to hit, and we were in the basement hitting the life flight balls out of the machine, and it was my first time going over there, and I swung and missed it, I think 30 balls in a row, and he made a chart on the wall of how many times we hit the ball, and I had no marks on the chart, and then he showed me a picture of a perfect batting stance, and I just did not hit any of them.
My favorite memory being on this team is after every time we lost, and Eric just sits on the buck, he said, so how do we do, ladies? We stunk.
My favorite memory of having Eric as a coach was when he took me to practice one day, and the whole time on the way back we just talked about Disney and Disney movies the whole time.
My favorite memory of being on this team is pretty recent, when Coach pulled me out of the game for missing 3 consecutive fly balls.
My favorite memory of being on this team is my first year being here, and it was Mr. Meisner's birthday, and Al had a confetti cannon, blew it off, and went onto the van right next to us.
My favorite memory of being on the team is when we were at Nationals and I got pummeled by a wave, and Mr. Meisner still loves to tell this story to this day. He'll probably tell it right now.
Alright, my favorite memory from being on this team is when Mackenzie and I brought this tree stump to Eric's car, and we put it in the car, and he thought there was a cat in his car. Or the time we were at Busch Gardens when we were at Nationals in Virginia, and we were on the roller coaster, and it stopped up at the top like it's supposed to, and Eric started freaking out and asked me why it was stopping and started yelling and asked me all these questions, and I was like, I don't know, I've never been here either, and it was just really fun.
My favorite memory of being on this team is 5 years ago when we won a tournament. Coach lined us up behind him, walking down to first, and he was doing his dance move, just looking.
Alright, so favorite memory I have with you. I can't honestly think of one because there's so many. Honestly, I've just looked forward to every weekend and every summer. That's why I'm playing now. I know I keep saying I'm doing it for you, but I actually am. Just because I know how much you love it, and I don't want to miss out on spending time with you. So every memory is my favorite memory.
This is my best Eric Meisner impression. Come on, ladies, we're down 2-0. You can't win if you don't hit.
This is my best Eric Meisner impression. When you're telling us how to feel, then you go like, we gotta get like.
This is my best Eric Meisner impression.
My best Eric Meisner impression.
In here! Hit it in here!
This is my best Eric Meisner impression. Keep your head down! I just drew.
This is my best Eric Meisner impression. Yeah, I'm in the hood.
This is my best Eric Meisner impression. Hey Z, you trying to break the record for most strikeouts looking this weekend?
This is my best impression of Eric Meisner.
This is my best Eric Meisner impression. Where was that? Where?
Alright, this is my best Eric Meisner impression.
Explosive on 3, I want the whole park to hear it, right?
Here we go.
Ready? Explosive on 3! 1, 2, 3! Explosive!